Hi guys, hopefully you've come across my '09 video by now. So I'm just going to go straight into a Summerslam 2010 review, try and get some of these done before Sunday's show. As I said in my previous video, I recently took a hiatus from wrestling and got back into it in 2009. So the product still felt kind of fresh. Some new guys that I'd not recognised who were given decent opportunities, some guys that I did know about who were still seemingly in the same position as when I stopped watching it in 2006. 2010 was a strange kind of year for the WWE. It definitely wasn't one of the best. If you think about the big four pay-per-views of that year, the Royal Rumble wasn't too bad. It actually had kind of a decent ending with Edge returning. I thought the build-up to WrestleMania 26 was actually very well worked together. The way that you had Undertaker as champion, Shawn Michaels was obviously trying to get his rematch with the Undertaker, and the only way that he could eventually do that was to cost Undertaker the title at the Elimination Chamber. And then Chris Jericho would eventually pin the Undertaker. That would lead up to Chris Jericho and Edge. Edge is the Royal Rumble winner in their match. That fantastic main event between Michaels and Taker. It was just well worked together. I mean, the show itself wasn't too bad, I suppose. But it was well worked together. It was a decent build up to it. The big story of 2010 was obviously the Nexus. In the kind of the summer of the Nexus, I suppose you could call it. Made a massive impact. Really kind of gave a bit of a jolt in the arm of the wrestling business at the time, because you could tell that Shawn Michaels had retired. Guys like Jericho and Edge weren't going to be around for much longer. We were relying on guys like Cena and Orton. Batista, was becoming a part-time player at the time as well. So we needed something new and something refreshing. The NXT, in its original incarnation as a kind of like a reality show where people were kicked off every week, before it became what it is now. I remember watching it. I don't think it was the most successful thing that WWE's ever done. It was somewhat entertaining and new, but I did worry for all the other guys on the show. I really liked some of the guys like obviously Daniel Bryan, Skip Sheffield. I thought was quite good. Wade Barrett, obviously, and I just thought obviously only one guy is going to win this series. It ended up being Barrett, and I thought what's going to happen to the other guys, and I'm glad that they went with just giving all 7 of them an opportunity just to make an impact and see what they could do, I suppose. So this show, SummerSlam 2010, very much was written around the Nexus storyline and their involvement with John Cena, inevitably, I suppose. And I'll get onto that match in a minute. I'll just kind of talk about the rest of the card first. I mentioned in my '09 review about Dolph Ziggler and his position on the card, and at the time thinking this is someone that they seem serious about and they're going to give a good push, and he should be in a good position by this time next year, 2010. But then you look at it, he was again opening the show against Kofi Kingston. This was a series of so many matches that these two had. I remember that they feuded over the IC title for a while, and I believe a couple of years later they were feuding over the US title, and it was just overkill. I mean, sometimes you recognise that two guys work well together, and that's fine, and it's good to concentrate on that. But to do it so many times that you think, I really just don't care about this match anymore. And the fact that Dolph Ziggler hadn't progressed at all in the 12 months since the last year's SummerSlam. I think the only difference was that he was being partnered with Vicky Guerrero. Putting Dolph with women has never seemed to work, and surprise, surprise, 2015 he's associated with Lana in another relatively inconsequential SummerSlam match. I wouldn't be surprised if he opens the bloody show again. I don't even remember. There's so many matches of those two had. I don't really remember this one particularly. They all kind of seem to merge into one because the story and the style of the matches and the style of the two competitors. You'd seen it once or twice. You didn't need to see it again. Melina apparently defeated Alicia Fox for the Divas Championship. Don't remember it very much at all. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about that, to be honest. I'm happy, being fast forward in 2015, that Alicia Fox has got a decent position. Melina obviously has left now. Yeah, I don't really have to say too much about that. The next match was one of those really annoying decisions by the WWE. It really pissed me off. One of the most interesting factions, superstars, storylines of 2010 was the Straight Edge Society, which obviously came off the back of that really good feud between Punk and Jeff Hardy the year before, and then later Punk and The Undertaker, and then he kind of dropped the title to Undertaker and then went off on a slightly different direction. CM Punk at the time was cutting fantastic promos. People were talking about him as the evil Jesus character, kind of preaching to people about the dangers of drinking and drugs and smoking, and saying that he was better than everybody because he was straight edge. Perfect way to incorporate the straight edge persona into CM Punk. And they got to SummerSlam 2010, and they had a match with the Big Show. So it was, I think, all members of the Straight Edge Society. So Punk, Gallows, Joey Mercury. I think Serena was there as well at the time. And Big Show ends up getting the win. I do not understand that at all. I understand that Big Show's a giant, but often the way to make the crowd believe that a giant can be beaten is by putting him in a handicap match between three other people. And it's not like these three people were nobodies. I mean, CM Punk was arguably one of the biggest talents at the time in this company. Joey Mercury had his own, history in WCW. Luke Gallows, we didn't really know much about from a kind of WWE point of view, but we knew that he'd go in the ring, and that he was good sort of friends with CM Punk, and CM Punk was kind of really trying to push him and endorse him at the time. It wasn't even that long a match as well. I mean, I remember it being a really strange ending. I don't understand the decision at the time to go with Big Show, but this is a theme of the WWE, I suppose. And again, you look at all of the competitors of this match. Out of Luke Gallows, Joey Mercury, CM Punk, Big Show, the only person that's still really in and around the WWE at the moment is Big Show. I mean, you could say Joey Mercury is part of J&J Security, but we haven't seen them that much in recent weeks. All of the others have gone, which is a shame. We could have really done something maybe with somebody like a Luke Gallows or a CM Punk. But yeah, so we got on to the next match. This is Randy Orton versus Sheamus. I remember, this was a WWE title match, but it very much kind of went on under the radar because the show was ultimately built around the main event. Again, one of these matches that you've seen quite often before, although in 2009 it still felt kind of fresh. I mean, Sheamus made a fantastic introduction, winning the WWE title early on. One of his first pay-per-view, I believe his first pay-per-view match, he defeated John Cena to win the WWE title. I mean, that spoke volumes at the time, and you really would have thought that Sheamus would be in a much better position than he is now, but different things kind of happened with his character, I suppose. Randy Orton got the win, which wasn't surprising at the time. Wasn't really that big a deal in the sort of the grand scheme of things with this pay-per-view. Kind of a largely forgettable match, to be honest. There was a World Heavyweight title match between Kane and Rey Mysterio. This was, I believe correctly, a decent enough feud. I mean, I think Rey Mysterio and Kane have got enough experience between them to make each other look good in the ring, make the match look believable. Again, I don't really remember too much about it. It doesn't really stick out in my memory as one of the epic SummerSlam title matches. But Kane got the win, which was all well and good. Again, I mean, this is kind of a theme to the show, is that you remember bits and pieces, but nothing really meant anything. Nothing really had any importance, and it was all ultimately built around the main event. Enough has been said about this match by different commentators. The booking decision at the end to give essentially John Cena the win. The only surviving member of his team. Even John Cena himself has spoken about how he wasn't. He kind of looks back on that decision as possibly the wrong way to go, and it's really hurt all the members of the Nexus. I mean, if you just look at the team here, I mean, I've got some information open on the screen about the match. So if you go through different members of the Nexus and see where they are today, a lot of it can be pinned back to this match in 2010 and the fact that Nexus didn't get the win and they weren't made to look strong. I mean, you've got Wade Barrett, who is floating around. I wouldn't even call him a mid-carder anymore. He's kind of floating around that lower mid-card. A few, not far away from being a jobber, essentially. He's probably going to be opening the show at SummerSlam or maybe even on the pre-show. He's involved in that kind of celebrity match with whatever his name is. Hasn't really done anything. Hasn't held a major title. Never really got. I mean, he's been plagued with injury, I suppose, which was wasn't really his fault. Justin Gabriel, David Otunga, Michael Tarver, all gone from the company. I suppose you could say a kind of a success story was Darren Young. I think at the time he was seen as the weak link in the Nexus. I believe he was the first one to be eliminated by Daniel Bryan in this match quite early on. So you kind of thought the company wasn't really interested in him, whereas he's got a decent position now on the card. He's the tag team champion with Titus O'Neil in a relatively entertaining tag team. So, fair play to Darren Young, I would say. Skip Sheffield, obviously now known as Ryback. I guess if you're not counting Daniel Bryan, I suppose he's probably the most successful former member of the Nexus. Although I wish they would have done more with him. I wish he would have had a title by now, but hey ho. Obviously, Daniel Bryan's incorporation into this match took people by surprise. I remember, this wasn't long after he was fired from the company for strangling Justin Roberts with a tie. He came in with a big following. He was kind of similar to the CM Punk kind of character. We had the indie fans behind him. People knew who he was largely, and a good sort of spotlight for him. I suppose it would have been better if you were going to go with Cena actually getting the eventual victory, at least have Daniel Bryan as one of the sole survivors of the team as well alongside him. I mean, the fact that we just ended up with Cena as the be all and end all of the match was ridiculous. I'm not going to go into too much about it because it was it's been spoken about enough. But one thing it did was just leave a really sour taste in people's mouths about this card. I mean, this really isn't a decent card to go back and watch. If you're a fan of in-ring talent, then you might want to see Dolph Ziggler and Kofi Kingston go at it. There's nothing really to say. I mean, the Big Show Straight Edge Society didn't really have that much wrestling in it, and it pissed everybody off. Sheamus Orton, wait 2 more days or 3 more days or whatever, and you'll get that match again. We're still in 2015. We're still getting Randy Orton versus Sheamus, and it means even less than it did back in 2010. So that kind of tells you what you need to know about that. Kane and Rey Mysterio, again, forgettable match. Main event, enough's been said about that already, and it has the potential to piss you off if you look at guys that potentially had some potential in the NXT. But and the fact that John Cena's still doing what he's doing now, I mean, SummerSlam 2015, there's a good chance that Seth Rollins is going to lose and John Cena's going to become a 16-time world champion. And reasons to kind of get behind the Cena character are minimal, if existent at all, really. And it's crap like this that I suppose people remember, and I think this is going to be, whether the WWE like it or not, this is going to be one of the defining moments of Cena's career. This what he did here in 2010. I suppose what the company did as a whole, but what John Cena was involved in at the time. So